Hello, my name is Sarah Powell and I am an assistant professor in special education at the University of Texas at Austin. And I'm here today to talk to you about an article that my colleague Pam Stecker and I wrote called Using Data-Based Individualization to Intensify Mathematics Intervention for Students with Disabilities. Now, before we get started, you may be asking yourself, what is she doing with all those awesome giraffes behind her? And I know that that's the question that you're asking. Well, first of all, when I was asked to do this video, I was like, ugh, I don't really want to do a video, but okay. So I came home tonight from work, I put on my favorite special education t-shirt, of which you should always have several to choose from, and then I came in to hang out with my giraffe. So that the one person who actually watches this video, thank you for pushing play, and I'm sure it's because all those giraffes were behind me and not because I am talking about mathematics DBI. But now I am going to talk about mathematics DBI to get you ready to read this article. So again, I do want to give credit to Pam Stecker. She was my amazing co-author on this article. It's a lovely joy to work with her. And the whole point of this article was to talk about DBI as it relates to mathematics, which I know is everyone's favorite subject. You don't have to tell me. So I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about this article. And this article was about a student named Molly. So I'm going to have, let's see, Two Spot can help me out. We'll pretend that Two Spot is Molly. Two Spot is called Two Spot because guess how many spots Two Spot has? 1, 2. And that was some just awesome practicing of our counting skills. So anyway, our student Molly is having some difficulty with mathematics. And so she is in 5th grade. Her teachers identify her as a student that's having difficulty. And so they flag her and they start to progress monitor. And then they realize that as Molly comes to 6th grade, she is still having a lot of difficulty and performing below grade level in mathematics. Two Spot actually looks a little bit sad. So when Molly enters 6th grade, they start to progress monitor her. And if you can look on page 33 of the manuscript, Molly starts to take a progress monitoring measure every week. And this progress monitoring measure is related to 5th grade computation items. First of all, we know in mathematics that computation is a very strong predictor of overall mathematics competence. And so because Molly is performing around a 5th grade level, even though she is a 6th grade student, her teacher is going to monitor her progress at a progress monitoring probe level that is appropriate for Molly. So since Molly is a 6th grader but performing at a 5th grade level, her teacher chooses to use a 5th grade computation probe to monitor Molly's progress. Now, if you look at this probe, I know you've been talking about general outcome measures and all of that fun stuff related to progress monitoring. If you look at this probe, you'll realize that it samples the year-long grade level curriculum in terms of what a 5th grader should be expected to know. You know, Molly, I'm going to put you down right now. What a 5th grader should be expected to know in terms of mathematics. So if you look here at this progress monitoring probe, there are 25 items, which is pretty par for the course in terms of computation progress monitoring. And if I look, I see that there are 4 fractions items. And so every probe, every alternate probe is also going to have 4 computation fraction items. I see that there are 3 long division problems, some that involve long division with whole numbers, some with rational numbers. Rational numbers are fractions, decimals, and percentages. And so since there are those 3 division problems on this probe, that means that all of Molly's alternate probes will also have that same number of items. So Molly's teacher, Mr. Drummond, administers this progress monitoring probe while he is doing intensive intervention for Molly. And Molly's first phase of intensive intervention was to break down the mathematics into smaller steps, to use modeling, so to show Molly, like, here's how this works and this is why this works, and to also use manipulatives. Manipulatives are hands-on materials that students can move around that really help students understand math concepts. So if you look at the graph on page 34, we'll bring back Molly into our picture. After progress monitoring her for 8 weeks, Molly's progress looks a little sad. She's making actually really no progress at all. So instead of just letting Molly just sit there and do the same thing again and again and again, Mr. Drummond is like, whoa, it is time to make an instructional change. And that's the whole awesome thing about progress monitoring, is that it makes real-time decisions about students like Molly who are having difficulty with mathematics. So Mr. Drummond intensifies Molly's instruction by doing 3 additional things for Molly's instructional program. He includes repeated practice. That is a super important thing to remember in mathematics, is that students need practice. Yo-Yo Ma did not become amazing at the cello because he never practiced. And it's the same thing in math. If Molly is going to become awesome in math, she needs to practice. Mr. Drummond also includes error correction for Molly, so anytime that Molly makes a mistake, he says, stop, let's look at that again, let's work through this together to really help Molly with her understanding of mathematics. And then Mr. Drummond also pays attention to the language that he uses in his mathematics instruction. He would never say something like top number. He would always say numerator. So Molly continues with her progress monitoring probes. Every week she takes one of those assessments, again the alternate probes that are all testing the 5th grade year-long curriculum. And then at the end of a series of weeks, so really about almost 10 weeks or so, if we look at the graph on page 35, Molly, you're starting to do all right here. So Molly's progress is starting to go up, going up, but it's just not as steep as we want it to be. And so then Mr. Drummond's like, you know what, I need to make another instructional change. So if you look at the graph on page 36, Mr. Drummond intensifies Molly's instruction by adding in worked examples. These are really a good teaching tool in mathematics. Worked examples perhaps that the teacher has worked, perhaps worked examples from a hypothetical student, or even Molly looking back at examples that she has worked in the past. Mr. Drummond also starts to have Molly explain. So I might say, Molly, how did you solve this problem? And then Molly would start to explain, well, first I did this and then I did that. So to really get this whole like internalization of the mathematics right down here in Molly's, well, not belly, but let's say up here in Molly's brain. And then he also starts to fade support. So some of these things that he's already put in place, he starts to fade those. Because the thing about mathematics, well, and it's really all learning, is that when your teacher's there and helping you, that's awesome. But your teacher's not going home with you, so Molly really needs to start to internalize some of these processes so that when she goes home to do mathematics, she really has a good understanding of what she's expected to do. So Mr. Drummond continues to progress monitor Molly during this week, this period. And so you can see that after 26 weeks, and after this instructional change, which is marked by a dark vertical line on Molly's graph, that Molly is really starting to take off. She is doing great. Good job, Molly. And now with this rate of progress, it looks like she's on track to at least meet her goal line, and if anything, exceed it. Yay, good job, Molly. All right. So Molly's gonna go back there to the ground, and I'm just gonna give you a conclusion. So this was a hypothetical article about how we could see intensive intervention mixed with the data-based individualization process. So the big key points were that Molly was being progress monitoring on a regular basis. Mr. Drummond was very systematic about the changes that he made to Molly's program, and everything was really well done. I guess I don't know the last thing to say. So anyway, I look forward to meeting some of you, and congratulations to the one person who pushed play on this video and watched it all the way through. My giraffes thank you, and I thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.